Hi there, welcome to 90% Knitting. This is episode 381. I'm Lisa, also known as Fiber Nymph, and today is Wednesday, January 12th, 2022. So, welcome to the first regular podcast episode of the year. Happy New Year. I hope you have had a good start to your new year. Mine has been pretty good. It's been pretty even, well balanced, so to speak. This is the first regular episode. Oh my gosh, I think I just spit at you. I'm sorry. I did record a special episode, I think back within the first week of the year, and that was my 2022 Whips and Plans episode, which if you haven't seen it already, I will try to do that linky thing that shows up at the top of the screen. I don't know which side it'll show up on. Anyway, I will try to do that, and I'll link it in the show notes too. And I may end up linking it throughout the podcast at different places because I'm pretty sure I'll be referring to things that I talked about and showed you in that episode. So if you want to see a rundown of all the whips that I have in my life, specifically knitting and crochet whips, if you'd like to see those and like to hear me talk a little bit about what I did in 2021, because I kind of did my rundown list in that, what I accomplished, as well as the plans such as they were for 2022. They're still pretty loosey-goosey. In fact, it would be safe to say that my 2022 plans are a work in progress themselves. Before I forget what I'm wearing, I'm actually wearing several knit-related things today. The scarf, however, is a scarf. It's very long. You might remember this. It's not a specific pattern, although I think I based it off of a specific pattern. I'll have to look it up and I'll put it in the show notes, or I'll put it down here or something. But I knit this over an Advent season a few years back. It was not a specific Advent set, but I had gone through all of my leftover fingering weight scraps, and I had created a gradient that went from yellows up through different kind of goldish colors into greens, and then this is folded over because this is how long this is. It's super, super long. Greens, and then back around and turns into blues. So I knit this chevron pattern scarf. It's not wide at all. It's actually pretty narrow. It probably would have been better if I would have made it wider, and then it wouldn't be quite so long. But it's fine because I wear it doubled like this. Yeah, so it's a chevron, and I love chevrons. You guys know that. Chevrons will come up again in this podcast, by the way. Anyway, so I just knit it like this, and then, like I said, I fold it in half and then wear it double. Sometimes I slip these ends inside the loop, but I also sometimes just wear it like this with a cuff, like a shawl cuff on it. So this is a Birdie Parker bracelet, and the earrings I'm wearing are from Woolen Forest Charm. Oh my gosh. Maria. Her name is Maria. And she makes all kinds of really cool stitch markers with a lot of, gemstones and stuff on them. And she did earrings a while back. And they have these really pretty moon cutouts in them. And I don't remember what stone they are. I'm going to say maybe moonstone, since it's a moon themed thing. I don't really remember. But anyway, so that's another kind of woolly shop kind of thing. Is it Woolen Forest? I don't know. She has a podcast too. So I will link all of that somewhere. Definitely in the show notes. If I am able to put it down here, I will tell you. But those are my woolly related things that I'm wearing today. Okay, now we're going to get into the knitting. And we're going to start with my only finished object. And it's this. And you might say, that looks really, really familiar. And that's because it was a finished object last time I showed it to you at the last episode in December. But it became a whip again, and now it's a finished object again. So this is the Doubly Warm Rainbow Hat by Susan Z. Douglas. It's from an issue of Spin-Off, I think from 2005 maybe. I don't remember. It'll be in the show notes. Anyway, when I first did this, so again, I'll recap. You knit this garter stitch section first, and you knit it flat, and then with a provisional cast on, and then you stitch it together, you Kitchener the seam. So you have a tube, this garter stitch tube, which then gets turned this way, and you pick up around both edges and you basically knit a crown. And the point was meant that you would be able to then put the one end inside the other. And it's a double hat, which means it's doubly warm. And then the brim, okay, I'm having technical issues doing this. The brim, when it's folded up, is actually 4 layers thick, which is nice. However, I did modify it to make it so that it would hopefully be long enough that my husband, because this was for Bill, that he would be able to fold it up and it would be able to really double a good bit over his ears, but I didn't make it long enough. The middle section was what I was trying to make wide enough, and I did cast on more stitches than the pattern called for, but it wasn't enough, and so he was only able to turn it up like a little bit, which did not keep anything warm. And I wasn't thrilled with it, as I told you the last time. I just wasn't super excited about this vertical. Here, I should do this over here. I leave more space over here so I can hold things up, and then I try to do it over here anyway. Yeah, so I wasn't super crazy about this vertical striping on the brim. For a grown man, it looked very childish to me, but I think part of it was it just wasn't big enough. So I had originally told Bill, you know what, unless you really love the hat, I'm going to rip it completely out and just make you a different hat. But then after I started thinking about it, I thought, you know, I could just rip the top parts out, well, this part and the blue one, the other top. I could just rip those back to before the decreases and then knit the straight part further and then do the decreases again. And so that's what I ended up doing. I basically ended up knitting this part of the hat, both ends, to be as long as I would knit a hat anytime I was knitting a hat. So it basically, you know, from like the bottom of your ears up to here, and then I started the decreases, and that made a world of difference. In fact, I will insert a picture here of him wearing it now, and you can see that he is able to fold it up the whole way. So his ears are covered with 4 layers of fabric, and it's useful to him now, and he loves it. He said, it's perfect. This is exactly the way a hat should fit. So I feel like I was able to redeem this pattern and this project that I wasn't originally sold was going to be okay. So I did have to do, you know, some ripping out and reknitting, but at least it was just a little bit. It wasn't a lot. So that is my only finished object, or my refinished object. Okay, next up is work in progress. It's this hat, and you might be saying, but Lisa, that's a finished object. You're right. Technically, it's finished object that you did see last time. This is the hat I knit for my daughter for Christmas. It's the Latu hat by Meiju KP. Yes. And I knit it on Malabrigo, and I think I told you last time that I knit it and she likes it a lot, but it was a little too loose on her, so she asked if there was any way I could snug it up. So I soaked it and I threw it in the dryer, and it did snug up some, but then after she wore it a couple times, it loosened up again. So she's like, hey, can you do that again? And I said, you know what? I think rather than just beating the yarn up like that, it would be better if I just ripped it out and just completely reknit it with fewer stitches. And she felt bad, and I'm like, no, don't worry about it. It's a quick hat to knit. I could do it in probably 2 days. And so that's what I'm going to do. I haven't done it yet. It's still just the way it was originally. And she did decide on the black pom-pom, by the way. So yeah, you don't want to have to reknit something, but like I proved, like I proved with Bill's hat, it's better to just do the work and redo it the way that it'll work best for the person who's going to be wearing it. And again, it's not a hardship to reknit this simple beanie. It's got that nice little cable, and that's a lot of fun to do, actually. So I don't mind doing that. I just have to rip it out and get it back on the needles. So that will be an upcoming project that will go from finished object to work in progress, back to finished object. Let's see. what else? That's really all the knitting. It hasn't been a big knitting couple of weeks, to be honest. My energy for knitting has just sort of been absent. And it's been okay because I've been doing a lot of other things, crafty and otherwise. It's just been sort of a low flow time for the knitting. However, if you watched the 2022 Whips and Plans video, which again I will link up here somewhere if I'm able to link it more than once, I talked about the fact that I was going to be doing the Year of the Stash make-along for 2022 that is being hosted by Carol from A Stitch in Time podcast. And one of the elements of her make-along is that it's sort of like a sub part of the make-along, is that she has put together 12 baggies with skeins of sock yarn in them so that she can have her own personal sock yarn club, and she's going to make a pair of socks every month with that yarn, which I have done that before and I think it's a fabulous idea. I don't think I've ever gotten through the entire year and stuck with it, but I like that idea, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to do that, except I'm going to do it not with sock yarn, I'm going to just do it with other stash yarn that I would like to use. So, as I already explained in the other video, I pulled 12 skeins or 12 sets of skeins depending on the yarn, and I sat them out on the dining room table, and then I gave my husband 12 project bags, and then I left the room and I said, here, put these 12 lots of yarn into these 12 bags, zip them up so that I can't see what they are. So he did that for me. And so I have one bag that I'm going to just randomly pull every month and use that as a challenge to myself to make something, because all of the yarn that I picked was yarn that I did not have a specific idea of what I wanted to do with it. 6 of the skeins were either indie dyed yarn or I think there's some commercial yarn in there, and some of it is also my indie dyed, like Fiber Nymph Dye Works yarn. So 6 of the skeins are that, and then 6 of the skeins are hand spun. Because I would really, that's one of my goals this year. I would like to use more of my hand spun, because I've got quite a big hand spun stash and I want to spin more. So anyway, I did on that special video, I did at the end pull my January bag, and the yarn that I ended up picking was this. And this is some North Ronaldsay yarn that I did get from the Woolly Thistle probably a few years ago. A yarn from North Ronaldsay, which is an island over across the ocean over there, over yonder from the island of North Ronaldsay. It is, I've never knit with North Ronaldsay yarn before, so that is going to be fun. You can see it's kind of a little hairy. I mean, not guard hairy, like heavy, rough guard hairs. I don't know if those are guard hairs or if it's just the way it's spun. I'm unsure. But it's not a super, super merino soft wool, but it's also not super itchy. Like, it'll be fine for me. And let's see. This is an 85-gram skein, approximately 250 meters. So that's, what, 275-ish yards. I know yards are more than meters. Anyway, so that's what I've got here. It's wound into a ball. I have not cast it on yet, but I did print out the pattern that I'm going to make with it, and it's going to be the Loden Slouchy Hat by Julia Trice. And there's a tiny picture of it here on the pattern. It's a lace and cables sort of pattern. And matter of fact, I will put a picture in here of one that I made before. I made one of these back in 2017 out of some Malabrigo. I made it for Emma. I don't know that she still has it. I have not seen her wear it lately. I'll have to ask her about that. Anyway, I remember really enjoying the pattern. It was sort of, you know, like that other hat that I just made for her that I'm going to be re-knitting. It's got enough interest in it with the cables. It keeps your attention. And this one actually more so because there's cabling and lace all around the hat. So it'll definitely be something that I'll need to pay attention to, but I am looking forward to it. It is written for DK weight yarn. This is supposedly DK weight yarn. I think it seems more like sport weight. It may knit up more like a DK. We'll see once I get it started, but I have the feeling I'm probably going to have to do some adjusting to make it you know, work out quite right. But I do want it to be a hat that has some, I don't want it to be a stiff hat. I want it to, you know, have some, not flow. What's it called? I want the fabric to be drapey. Drapey is the word. I don't know that you really refer to hats as being drapey, but the fabric of the hat is, I'd like it to have some drape and give. Anywho, okay, so that is what my January project is going to be. So I am going to cast that on maybe later today, but I would like to get that going because time's a ticking and I'm not making much progress on it. At least the yarn's wound, right? Okay, so that is going to be my cast on, which I guess that'll be my first official cast on of 2022 if you don't count the things that I'm remaking. I don't know. All right, so let's move on. Spinning. I know I showed these or talked about them previously, but now that they're all soaked, I wanted to show you again. These are my minis that I'm dropping. Okay. These are my minis that I spun from my Winter Magical collection that I kept for myself, and I kept one of the Mixed BFL silk sets, and so they are all finished now. Oh my gosh. And they're just flying everywhere. Look how squishy though. Oh my gosh. I am so happy with how they turned out. Yeah, I love them. I 2-plied them. So I spun half of each little mini on a separate bobbin and then plied them together. And I don't know what my total yardage is because I have not remeasured them since soaking them, and I know they would have shrunk up. So I do have to do those calculations again. But all in all, I am so excited. I can't wait to use these for something. My original plan was I was going to use it for one of my Winter Magical shawls because I've knit 2 of them, but I did not knit any of them out of the actual minis from the Winter Magical collection, and I hadn't knit any out of hand spun. So I'm thinking about maybe doing that, or I may just save them for another project. I don't know. I have some other project ideas that I'd like to design specifically for hand spun. So we'll see what I end up doing. But they are finished. Meanwhile, I did start another spinning project, and I will put a picture of my bobbin in here, and that is my day 25 skein that I kept from the Winter Magical collection, and I kept that. I kept one of the just Mixed BFL, not Mixed BFL in silk. So it's coming out with that darker look to it. It's really cool. I'm a little over halfway through. I think I'm maybe about 3/4, excuse me, 3/4 of the way through with that braid. Although I will say the other day when I was spinning some of it, I didn't spin today, but the last time I sat down to work on it, I don't know what was going on, but I was having issues and I kept losing the yarn, had to dig it out of the bobbin and then get it going again. I hate when that happens, and I hadn't been having that problem. I think I was just having an off day. Also, I'm spinning that on my sidekick on the Jumbo Flyer, which anytime I'm spinning my singles on my sidekick, I always struggle a little bit. It's not my favorite wheel. My Ashford Traveler is my favorite wheel for spinning singles. I usually ply on my sidekick, but if I'm doing a braid that I know I want to 3-ply, like chain ply, I will do that on my Traveler or on my sidekick, because I have the big bobbins and I don't have to divide them up, you know, into smaller quantities. So that is why I'm using that wheel. And I struggle with my bobbin tension on that wheel. It's a Scotch tension setup rather than my Traveler has double drive, which is another way that the bobbin is tensioned, the uptake of the singles. And so I just, for whatever reason, I struggle with it sometimes. But it'll be fine. Like I said, I'm about 3/4 of the way done, so it's coming along. Okay. What else? Let me look at my show notes here. Oh, weaving. Okay, great news. And I did talk about this on the special episode too. I finally finished, like literally like put the teak oil, finished and assembled my big loom, my 24-inch rigid heddle loom. It's an Ashford loom. I bought it over 2 years ago, right? Let's see, 2021, 2020, 2019. I bought it around like the Thanksgiving sales, that weekend sales, Black Friday sales of 2019. I bought it and the stand. The loom came pretty quickly. The stand took at least a month, if not longer, to get to me because they were back ordered. And so the whole kit and caboodle just sat. It did not get assembled. And the more I thought about it, the more intimidated I started getting about it. And so I never did anything. But this year was going to be the year I was bound and determined. I was putting that loom together. And so I did. And I will insert a picture of that here. I have not woven on it yet. I'm really itching to do so, but one of the reasons I wanted to get that put together was because I think I mentioned, again, I don't remember if I mentioned which video I mentioned it on, but I was thinking about taking part in a weave along that was being hosted by Kelly Casanova, who is a weaving instructor, and she has her own online weaving school too, which I'm a member of. And she had been talking about that, and I thought, oh, that would be really cool, because it was going to be for these dish towels, which you're weaving out of cotton. I don't have a lot of experience working with cotton. I only wove with cotton one other time, and it didn't turn out super great. Cotton's a totally different animal to weave with, just like it is when you're knitting. I mean, it's different. It's got different properties. But anyway, the one thing about this weave along was these dish towels, it was going to be 24 inches wide, or dish towels are 20 inches wide, so you needed at least a 24-inch loom. So that was the one thing. But the other thing is you need to know how to weave using two heddles. Well, I have never woven using two heddles. And she recommended, number one, that this was not a weave along for a brand new beginning weaver. Okay, I'm not a brand new beginning weaver, so I thought, well, maybe I have enough know-how. As long as I learn how to use two heddles, I should be okay. So in her weaving school, she does have a course on working with two heddles. So one day last week, I took an entire day. I considered it my, what is it, professional, what do they call it, like when teachers go back to school, professional something. I want to say professional edification, but that's not the right word. You know what I mean. Like when you're learning something to help you do your job. Technically, I don't do weaving as a job, but you know what I mean. Learning something new that relates to what you do. Okay, I know the phrase will come to me. Anyway, I took the entire day to do this class, and I mean, I knew I wasn't going to like become an expert at it immediately, but I really expected to not struggle with it. I was wrong. Those were incorrect expectations of myself. Oh my gosh. So I chose to use cotton because I thought, okay, this make along is going to be in cotton, or the weave along was going to be in cotton, so I should probably do this in cotton as well. Well, in retrospect, after doing this entire thing, I think one of the biggest problems I did was I used the wrong size heddle for the cotton that I was using. Oh, and I will point out, I was doing this on my small loom, my 10-inch sample it loom. So I wasn't on the big loom. So it was a 12.5 dent heddle that I have two of for my small loom. Matter of fact, that's what I have for the big loom too. Had I used 8-2 cotton, see, that's the other thing, like cotton for weaving is labeled so differently than anything for knitting. It's 8-2 cotton is a lighter weight cotton, and I think that's what the weave along is actually using. I have 8-2 cotton, but I also have 8-4 cotton, and it's a little heavier weight. Well, it looked like it would be just fine in these heddles for what I was doing. And in retrospect, maybe if I was just doing a regular single heddle weaving, it might have been fine. But I wasn't. I was doing double heddle weaving. And what I didn't know going into this about double heddle weaving is that when you're warping your loom, as you're pulling the yarn from the cone or the ball or whatever, and you pull it from the back, you tie it onto the back beam, and then you pull it through the heddle to your warping peg. I do direct warping, so that's what I do. Then that takes 2 strands of yarn through your heddle. okay? And then later on, after you've done that the whole way down and you are ready to thread all those threads through the little holes that are in your loom, because you've got a slot and then you've got a hole. So you take one of each of those strands and you put it through the hole. Well, when you're doing double heddle, you're working with 4 strands. You're holding 2 strands of yarn when you're doing that initial warping through the first heddle, or the rear heddle, and then once you've finished warping that, you end up having to pull 2 more or more of those strands through the front heddle. So I had, where normally you would have 2 strands of yarn, I had 4 strands of yarn, and I had 4 strands of yarn that was too heavy to be doing all that kind of fiddling around with. And so when I finally got everything set up, I realized, wow, this is a really sticky warp, and like the yarn was not moving freely. It was a hot mess from the get-go. And I did try to, I thought it was maybe how I warped it, and some strands weren't quite where, I don't know. But I persevered, and I tried to work my way through this course. And I did get through maybe the first 3 lessons, probably about half of the course, before not only did I realize this was not going to happen well, because I was having way too many issues with the warp sticking, because if a regular warp sticks, again, you've got 2 sheds. Like, you've got the yarn when it's in the up position and the yarn that's in, like, if it's in the up position, you know, your yarn's like this. If it's in the down position, your yarn's like this, sort of. That's not totally accurate either, but anyway, you have a shed. But when you're working with 2 heddles, you've got like multiple sheds happening, and they have to all work together, and mine weren't. And I'm sorry if this is a bunch of gibberish, but quite frankly, it seemed all gibberish to me when I was trying to do it too, because I couldn't figure out how things were supposed to look and work. And that's the thing about this class. I'm sure it's a very good class. Kelly Casno is a very good teacher. I've done other classes of hers. However, this class, I think, assumed a certain level of basic weaving knowledge that I kind of thought I had, but apparently I do not. And so I finally decided after, God, I don't know, 6 or 7 hours literally of this, that I needed to just cut my losses and cut this warp off of this loom, because it was ridiculous how messed up it was. And I needed to kind of back up and like learn some more basics before progressing to doing this double heddle weaving. So here, I will show you what I ended up with. Here's all of my warp that I didn't use but is cut off, and I'm going to find a way to repurpose this yarn at some point. But this is what I ended up with. Now, I mean, it sort of looks like I was doing something. These are not supposed to be like this. I don't know what, I do know what I did. At that point, I was just playing around. I was trying to take what she was telling us to do, and she was saying, you know, just play around, try different combinations of the different things you're using, because then you get to a point where you're using pickup sticks. And I'd never used pickup sticks before. I thought I knew what that meant. I did not, and I did stop, and I ended up watching another video about those that I think was hers, but then I still didn't get it completely. And I think maybe they work a little differently if you're working with only 1 heddle versus 2. I mean, I'm sure they do the same thing, but in a different way. So, oh my gosh. It was just such a day. But yeah, so this is my first attempt, and it was not pretty. And, you know, you learn. This is how you learn. By doing things badly. I do not feel bad. I feel a little bad, because I do feel like, in one way, I feel like I wasted an entire day with nothing to show for it. But that's not true. I spent an entire day learning new things. And even if one of the things, the primary things that I learned is that I need to learn other things before I can learn this, that's important. And it's also important to know now that, like, the weight of your yarn really, really does matter. And it, you know, while this might have been great with a single heddle of, you know, a single 12.5 heddle, probably not so good. Obviously not so good for 2 of them. Whereas it's funny, because whenever I wove with the cotton one other time, I did use the lighter weight cotton, and I used the 12.5 dent heddle, and it was too loose. The fabric was too loose. So, but then I also probably didn't do that right because I was just winging it. So whatever. That was my weaving experience this week. I'm trying to just be okay with it. And I am okay with it. I am okay with it. I was just a little deflated because I really had hoped that I would be able to do this weave along. I had purchased the pattern and I was looking forward to doing it, but it's not meant to be right now, and that's fine. Maybe sometime in the future, just not right now. However, I did end up ordering a second 12.5 dent heddle for my big loom because I only had one. I also have a 10 dent heddle for that loom, but when I ordered that, I also ordered a variable dent heddle, which is, and if you don't know what a heddle is, it's the thing that the yarn goes through that you pull forward to, you know, it makes the yarn go up and down. I'm sorry, I'm not a good weaving instructor here. But a variable dent heddle has all these different little heddle panels that you can put in, and the dents vary, the dent size. That is what denotes what size yarn you're going to use. So you can actually use heavy yarns and light yarns together in the same project. And I'm really looking forward to playing with that because I think that'll be a lot of fun for like scarves and cowls and things. So at least I have something to look forward to that I think might be a really fun thing to play with. That was a lot of weaving talk with very little to show you, and I'm sorry if weaving's not your thing, but that's why I put timestamps in the show notes, so that if you aren't into weaving, you can just jump right ahead, especially if you aren't into listening to somebody talk about weaving who doesn't know what the heck they're doing. Okay. Other than that, I do have one other new cast on, but I'm going to show that to you in the shop news segment. Actually, you know what? I'll show it to you right now. Here's my sneak peek of it. This is a new colorway that's going to be in the shop this weekend. It's my winter palette pie colorway. I did an autumn palette pie. This is winter. I'll be doing one for spring and one for summer, but I will talk more about this in the shop news segment, and that will be in the shop on Saturday. All right. So moving along though in the 90% section first. The 2021 Nature Make-Along, if you were one of the 6 people who did go through the entire year and earned the free exclusive colorway skein, I know I've heard from some of you. I don't think I've heard from all of you. So if you got that email, or if you are one of those 6 people and you haven't gotten in touch with me to let me know what yarn base or what fiber you would like your exclusive skein or braid on, please email me at fibernymph@gmail.com and let me know. Or you can message me on Ravelry, but it's better if you email me because I'll see it sooner. I'd really like to get those taken care of as soon as possible and shipped out to everybody. So I want to get that wrapped up. And I will go through whoever I haven't heard from and double check on that. But the 2022 Make-Along that we're going to be doing in the Fiber Nymph Dye Works group and through the blog on fibernymphdyworks.com is the Make It Your Own Make-Along, or the Mio Mao. And I'm really excited about that. I just dropped my show notes. I'll go on before I pick them up. Anyway, it's going to start in March, and it's going to run the same way, the same type of quarters that we did last year for the Nature Make-Along. So there'll be 4 quarters. It'll be March, April, May, June. We're taking July off. And there'll be August, September, October, November, and then we'll be done for the year. So there'll be 2-month quarters. And the whole idea of the Make It Your Own Make-Along is that you are going to decide what you want your theme to be for each of those quarters. And then there will be, you know, a chatter thread in the Fiber Nymph Dye Works group. I believe I already have that open. Do I? Maybe I don't. I don't think I have a placeholder thread there, but I have not had time to go in and put in like all the guidelines and everything. That'll be the first post. But once that's open, you can start chattering in there, even though the Make-Along does not start till March. I am working with my web guy who's putting together my forms, because there will be 2 forms for this one. There will be a theme submission form, which you'll need to submit at the beginning of every, you know, I'm going to say like the last 2 weeks before a quarter starts, you need to get your theme submitted for the upcoming quarter. I mean, you can do them all at the beginning of the year if you want to. It doesn't matter, but you might want to change your mind later down the line, so whatever. So there'll be that, and then there will also be the finished object submission form, which will be used for prize drawings, as well as keeping track of who qualifies for the year-end exclusive colorway for this make-along. So that's the basic gist of it. I know I talked about it before and I read the guidelines. I think I probably will do like a separate little video, just doing the whole rundown in a separate video, so you have that in case that would be helpful. But anyway, just know that it's coming. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too. And yeah, that will be what we'll be doing in 2022 for the most part. But between now and then, I'm focusing on whips for January and February, except, well, theoretically, that's what I'm working on. My whips are things that I seem to be like undoing finished objects and turning them into whips again, but hopefully I will get back to my whips as well. So that's taking us into like the things I want to do this year, sort of my crafty goals. You know, I do want to work on whips, and like I said, I'm also going to be doing the Year of the Stash make along with Carol on her podcast. I mean, I'm not doing it with her, but I'm going to participate in it as a participant, as a viewer. But otherwise, January and February, I'm going to be focusing on finishing up some whips, hopefully. But other than that, projects that I want to do. Like, I have so many things that I keep thinking of, especially because I've been going through my stash and reorganizing and pulling stuff out. And oh my gosh, this has been a multi-day process. And the other day I was in there and I picked up a bin and I thought, what's in here? And I opened it and I realized that I went through this process last year where I pulled yarns out that I wanted to work through, that I wanted to be able to be like my yarny playground that I was going to just pull from anytime I was starting new projects. Totally forgot that I had that yarn in that bin, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my gosh. I wondered where some of these yarns were because I was looking for a couple of those skeins when I was putting together the yarn for those 12 monthly bags. I thought, I don't think I used that yarn. Yeah, they were in there. Totally insane. So I went through that and I organized, and I did end up pulling some yarn that's just very old commercial yarn that I'm never going to use. And I did put that in a bag to send to Goodwill. And I never feel bad about that, because if I've had yarn that long and it doesn't do anything for me, like, I'm happy to pass it on that way. So I did that. But as I think I said in the whips and plans video, you know, I've reorganized my stash. I left that bin intact, and I actually put a sign on it. It says playground. So it's on my shelf right where I can see it. It was kind of hidden in the corner of the room before that. So anyway, yeah, I'll be using that, hopefully. I also have a bin that I didn't forget about. I knew it was there, but I haven't looked in it in a while, and I still haven't opened it. It's full of fiber to spin. Yeah. So hopefully I'll get more spinning done. I've decided I'm leaving a spinning wheel out in the dining room this year. It's just going to sit in the corner of the dining room. I can easily spin at the dining room, like with a dining room chair there. And I used to not want to leave it there because I thought, we had a cat that used to pee on everything. That cat is no longer with us. He passed away a couple years ago. So I feel safer leaving my wheel out there. I don't think it'll get ruined by anybody. But it's just going to be there. At least if it's out, I'm more likely to use it. Same way, my big loom that I just put together, the only place there is for it is to sit next to the piano in our dining room. How convenient. Bill's like, well, why don't you put it over here next to the china cabinet? I'm like, my spinning wheel's sitting there. He's like, you have too much stuff. He was being completely sarcastic, but it was just like, yeah, let's talk about that, Mr. Man who owns how many motorcycles, and we don't have room for anything in our sheds and garages. I can't talk because some of those motorcycles are mine. But anyway, I digress. So in addition to the crafting that I want to do and using of the yarn that I want to do, I do really want to focus on hand spun this year. I would like to use more of my hand spun. I would love to make some hand spun sweaters, not necessarily ones out of spins that I did specifically for sweaters, but just sort of random, like mix and match color kind of sweaters. Andrea Mowry has her DRK Everyday sweater pattern that she just released not too long ago, and I do have that pattern. And I think she designed that specifically for hand spun, so that could be a good one for me to use. There's also just the women's classic raglan top-down raglan sweater that I've knit before. That would be a good one to do. And I also have the Ann Budd book about sweaters. Well, there's two. I think there's the sweater pattern book, and then top-down sweaters specifically. I think I have both of them. So I'm thinking I could just use that and do whatever I want with a sweater. So I'm hoping to do some sweaters. Also, skirts. I don't know why I suddenly want to knit skirts. The only skirt I've ever knit is my wedding skirt. You guys might remember that. But that's the only skirt I've ever knit. But I've had skirts on the brain over the years, and I've never done anything. But then I was watching Selma from Little Big Knits, her latest episode, and she talked about a bunch of skirts, and she has just released a skirt pattern too. And I thought, oh, skirts. I don't wear that many skirts. I'm at home. I'm in leggings all the time, you know. But I thought, oh, skirts could be fun. So I might knit skirts. Oh, going back to the sweaters and going back to chevrons, because I said we were going to revisit chevrons. There's this content creator on TikTok. I don't remember her name. But in a couple of her videos, she has had on this really cool, long cardigan it looks hand knit. I think she said she got it like at a thrift shop or something one time when she was talking about it. But it's chevrons. It's all these chevrons, and it looks like it's in fingering weight yarn. It's so pretty. If I can, I'll put a picture of the screenshot in here so you can see it. I cannot find an exact pattern for that. I've looked, and a friend of mine has been looking too, and we've found ones that are close and ones that I think I could make work. A lot of them, though, are written for Aran weight yarn, and I don't want Aran weight. I want to do it in fingering weight. And so I'm going to have to probably modify. Either that or I'm just going to have to find that shape of a fingering weight cardigan and then insert that chevron pattern into it, which will also take some math and some doing to get that right. But I really, really want a version of that. I think it's so pretty. And I know I don't dye poof anymore, my slub yarn, but I have some in my stash that I never used from when I was dyeing it, and I think it would be a really fun sweater to make with some poof along with other yarns. In fact, the one that is in that picture, I think probably has some slub yarn in it. It looks like it does to me anyway. So that's something that's on my radar. It's just so weird and crazy. Another thing I want to do, hang on, I gotta reach. I pulled all this yarn off my shelf and put it in a basket. This is my collection of Jamieson and Smith 2-ply. I've got lots of colors, as you can see, and I've used some of it for different projects. I've got natural colors, I've got, you know, colored colors. It's great for color work. I've made some hats. I haven't been super thrilled with the hats because they always end up too big, but that's me, not the patterns, not the yarn. Anyway, I have all this yarn, and as much as I love it, I kind of want to use it. I just want to take it and use it. And the easiest thing would be to knit a blanket with it or some sort of thing. But I don't know that I want to do that. I don't need a lot of Afghans in my life. I think I talked about that in one of the past videos too. I've got a lot of Afghans. Don't really need a lot of Afghans. So I'm looking for ideas of what I could do with these yarns. Let's see. I've got 4, 8, 12... I've probably got the equivalent of about 25-ish full skeins of Jamieson and Smith 2-ply, which has 125 yards per little 25-gram ball. So that would be 1,250 for 10. So that would be 2,500 for 20. So I probably got close to 3,000 yards. Thereabouts. That's what I'm going to estimate. What could I do with 3,000 yards? I could make a sweater. I could make a sweater. Maybe I could crochet a chevron sweater. I've never mastered the crocheted chevron though. My crocheted chevrons end up looking curvy, not angly. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I have to figure that out. Maybe I could do a knit crochet sweater, or a knit, that made no sense, a knit chevron sweater and a crocheted chevron sweater with this. That's something I might do. Or I could just do a really stripey, or, okay, see, now I'm getting excited. I could do a striped cardigan. It wouldn't have to be crochet. It could just be stripes with this Jameson, and that way I could do it in the round and I could steek it. That would be a good idea. Maybe that's what I'll do with this yarn. And it could just be all kinds of crazy colors. That would be fun. Oh, see, now maybe I think that's what I want to do. Anyway, yeah, I want to do something with that yarn. I want to use that yarn. That's all I'm going to talk about there, because that was like a lot and you didn't really need to hear that. Plus, that doesn't even get into the things I want to do with my business this year. I've got all kinds of ideas. You can tell it's January. My brain is on fire with ideas. Okay, let's jump into shop news. The state of the studio. First off, thank you so much if you shopped with me during the year-end sale on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. I so appreciate that. I hope you have gotten your stuff. I do know there are still some shipments out there floating around in USPS land. Like, it's taking a while for things to get shipped. Please be patient. I know, talking to my postmaster a couple of different times over the past year with all the shipping delays, he always tells me, he's like, just tell people to wait a couple of weeks. Things get hung up in like distribution centers and everything. He said, I don't know if they're called distribution centers in the mail thing, but whatever, you know, the big centers where things go before they get shipped out to the smaller post office. He said things can get stuck in a bin, and the bin gets stuck at a distribution center, and it can sit there for a while, and then suddenly somebody's like, oh, look, there's packages. We should probably deliver those. And so, you know, just please be patient. I know shipping is very frustrating in so many ways, but if after like 2 weeks or so you still have not gotten your package and tracking isn't looking like it's moving anywhere, please get in touch with me and I will work with you. I'll either be able, you know, I'll try to re-dye the stuff for you depending on what it was. Some of the stuff in the sale was like one of a kind kind of things though, so I'll work with you, but just know I feel your pain because I've been dealing with this too. We had so many things that we had ordered as Christmas gifts and we thought we ordered them early enough and they didn't come till well after Christmas. So it's a thing. It's a frustration. Anyway, let's see what else. Also, I already mentioned this on a past episode, but I will just remind you that I do now have an international flat rate shipping thing. Price. If you are outside of the US and you order more than 2 items, you will have the option. I don't actually know that it's an option. I think it'll just automatically come up as a flat rate of $20 for your shipping. If you order just 1 item, it'll probably just come up as the shipping that was already in place for 1 item. And this is all based off the price to ship yarn. Other items are going to have different prices. There is one exception that we had to add, and that is if you buy any of the Knit Ba Pearl mugs or glasses that I carry. Those are not eligible for either the free shipping offer that I do for US shipping or the flat rate shipping for international. It's after having done it a little bit with both of those, it costs way, way more to ship those mugs because of I can't put those just in a plastic envelope, obviously. I have to ship those in cardboard boxes, and the shipping ends up being very expensive. So those are the only exception to both the free shipping for $50 or more orders for the US and the international shipping of 2 items or more for $20. Those are the exceptions. That'll be just regular shipping rates. But other than that, you still have those 2 options. Okay, shop update. Shop update will be on Saturday, January 15th at 10 a.m. Eastern. I don't have everything ready to show you right now, and I will be posting on social media, and I will be sending out a newsletter in the coming days, but I've got some winter colorways, so there will be, oh, there's a giant bird outside, sorry. Oh, did I really just do that? I just pulled a needle out of this sock. Oh, this sample. I'll deal with it later. I'll pick up all those stitches. Anyway, so as I showed you before, this is my new colorway, and this is Winter Palette Pie. So these are all my wintry colors. These don't represent anything specific for each stripe. This is just, I was going through a lot of winter photos and inspiration photos, and these were the colors that were coming up a lot. So these are all semi-solid colors, but then each color segment, when I do the stripes, is being over dyed in a really pale gray. So they will have sort of a duskiness to them that's a layering effect. And I'm just really happy with how it turned out. So you've got two different blue stripes, a light one and this darker one, kind of a sagey green, a lightish purple, and then this sort of grayish taupe, so like a grayish, I guess you could call it. So those are the 5 stripes in Winter Palette Pie. I will have a lot of this in the shop on several different bases, like a lot of different bases. So that will be in there. And then related to this, I'm going to have mini sets of all 5 of these colors as well on a bunch of different bases. And if I have time, it may not be this week, it might have to be the next update, but I'm going to try to do a variegated version of this, like on Sunshine and on Fluff. I don't do many variegated colorways anymore because that's not my specialty, but every once in a while I like to play with them, and so I may do one on that. Anyway, so there'll be that. There's going to be a little bit of Mountain House Winter because I like to do that every year. That's a popular one with people. And the other one is going to be, I'll put it in here so you can see it. I've never offered this in the shop at large before. It was a pigskin party colorway a couple years ago, and it's called Birds of Play. And so there's 5 NFL teams that have bird names in them, and that's what the colors represent, those 5 actual birds, except Seahawks, because Seahawks are not an actual bird. I looked it up. There's not a specific bird that has that official name, but it's still represented in the colors. So anyway, I know that the football season is almost over, but I think this is a really nice winter colorway. It's a nice dark colorway, and if you have somebody in your life who does not prefer brights and prefers more subdued, you know, darker colors, this is a great option too. I will have a couple of Serendipitous stripes colorways, and then I'm also going to have some Valentine's colorways. There will be a small quantity of Sweetie Pie, which is another one of my pie stripe colorways, just like Winter Palette Pie. If you're not familiar with my pie colorways, the pie colorways all have 5 stripes, and they rotate. The stripe widths vary based on the number in the numeric sequence of pi. That's where that comes from. So it's not pie like you eat. Although I often do colorways that could go either way, and it's sort of like a play on words. Anyway, so there will be some Sweetie Pie in the shop. I'm doing some shorty sock sets with my Sweetness colorway, which is a white stripe and then a stripe with all kinds of fun little Valentine Day colored speckles. So I'm going to have those that'll be paired up with a couple of coordinating minis for shorty sock sets. And then I have a new colorway that was originally going to just be a Serendipitous color. That's what I dyed it for, but then I dyed it and I love this color. And so I'm doing more of it because I did actually write down what I was doing. And this is what it looks like. I have not had a chance to do the sample yet, but it's 3 different semi-solid stripes, and then this light stripe that looks white is actually a lightly speckled stripe with the other 3 colors. And I'm calling this BYOV, which will stand for Be Your Own Valentine, because I think that's so important. You know, you don't have to have somebody else treating you nice and loving on you. Well, you can, and it's always nice, but you know what? It's best if we love ourselves first, right? And so that's kind of the theme of this one. Just be your own Valentine. And I chose that name because I really like purples as Valentine's colors. I'm not big into Valentine's Day myself, but I prefer purples to like the reds and pinks. So that's why I'm calling it this. Be Your Own Valentine. So this will also be in the shop on as many bases as I can get up this week. Since this was not intended to be a new colorway, it was going to just be a limited Serendipitous colorway. I only have it on Traveler and I think Bonafide right now, but I'm going to try to get it in on some fingering weights as well. But I'm planning to do another update hopefully next week, where I will have more of this. So anyway, what else? I think there might be a little bit like Dyer's Secret Stash in this update if I can get it together, because I do have some that's been waiting around to go in the shop. Anyway, check the shop. Like I said, I'll be sending out a newsletter. If you don't get my newsletter already, that's the best way to stay on top of what's happening with shop updates. So you can go to the website, fabricanddyworks.com, and there's a link at the very top of the page in the menu bar, and also at the very bottom of the page where you can sign up for the newsletter. Best way to stay abreast of what's going on. So that, again, the update will be on Saturday, the 15th at 10 a.m. And I think that's everything for shop news. I'm trying to talk fast because I know this is going to be super long and I'm going to have to do a lot of creative editing to make this under an hour, which is always my goal. What's bringing me joy this week? Well, the fact that it's been cold enough to have fires and wear woolly stuff, that always makes me very happy. But frankly, just starting off a new year, it brings me so much joy. It's like that fresh start feeling, and I love that feeling. And I'm trying to hang on to it this year because sometimes it goes really quick. But I'm trying to keep my expectations for this year realistic. And I think I mentioned in one of my previous videos that like my word of the year this year is pencil, which sounds weird because that's not usually what you use for your word of the year. It's supposed to be something inspirational. But I'm using pencil in the sense that like you pencil things in, you don't have to carve it in stone. And so that is how I'm trying to look at everything this year. Like everything I'm doing, I'm just trying to like pencil in my plans. If I need to be flexible and change them, I can. It's fine. And in fact, to reinforce this in my planner and on my my to-do lists and stuff that I'm making, I'm writing in pencil. I sharpened a whole bunch of pencils. And I am using pencil for almost everything. And instead of just scratching stuff out the way I would if I was writing in pen, I'm taking the time to erase, to reinforce the fact that we can change our minds. And it's okay. It doesn't have to like just be carved in stone. And then when things don't go right, you get frustrated. I know I'm not alone there. So pencil. Pencil is my word of the year. Getting back into my routine after the holidays too is always a happy thing, because as much as I like having time off, and I did take a lot of time off in December, my brain is always much happier once I'm back into my regular routine and I'm working and it has things to do, because for whatever reason my brain is happiest when it has work stuff to think about. It enjoys other things, but like it really gets tickled when it has work stuff to do. So again, I'm trying to keep that in balance as well. So anyway, that's what's going on with me. I hope things are really going well with you. How has your year been so far? I know we're only a couple weeks in, but like I hope it's going well. What goals do you have? Do you have a word of the year? If you do, I'd love to know about it and what caused you to choose that if you want to share. Yeah, just I hope things are going well for you. I hope you're enjoying your winter and your projects and any goals you have for this year. And on that note, I'm going to go so that I can start editing this, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.